Okay, we'll bring call the meeting to order now, and this is a special meeting of the Legislative Committee to consider the issue of the survey on the legislative proposal we have before us. And Derek, you're going to give the report on that, correct? So I'll go to you immediately.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. As a follow-up to our item on the last Friday's Legislative Committee meeting, staff is seeking approval for the release of a public survey and approval to introduce a bill to obtain authorization from the legislature to put a 1/4-cent sales tax increase measure on the ballot for voter approval within the jurisdiction of the South Coast SCAQMD, either through the governing board action or through the voter initiative process. This bill will only be introduced if the public survey provides a positive feedback relating to the bill proposal. The polling company Fairbanks, Maslin, Mullen, Metz, and Associates believes they can complete the survey in 3 days in order to meet the deadline for a spot bill, which is this Friday. The key focus of this bill.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, this is Supervisor Nelson. May I be heard, please?
Could we let Derek finish his report and then I'll let you speak, Supervisor Nelson. Let's hear the full report first.
Well,
Go ahead, Derek.
I have a problem with what he just said, and it is contradictory to what we agreed to at our meeting on Friday. And if what I just heard, because I'm trained to listen to every word, is where we're going, I have been bait and switched, and if that's on purpose, I'd just like to know, because my understanding was we were going to issue a survey, get the results, and then consult the board, full board, and make a decision. And what he just said is, depending on the results of the survey, there's no further discussion. It just goes direct to legislation. Is that everyone's understanding?
So let's hear what Derek has to say. The matter will go to the board, but we are reconsidering a different timeline on it. So let's hear what Derek has to say about it. Go ahead, Derek.
All right, thank you. The key focus of this bill proposal would be to help raise funds to support the 2016 AQMP and facilitate the significant reduction of air pollution within the South Coast. The public survey will be administered throughout the 4 counties of the South Coast region and will reach out to a representative spectrum of the public in order to provide accurate results. As for the bill proposal, it would only authorize but not directly create a ballot measure, and thus expected to be a majority vote bill in the legislature. If this bill is successful and an initiative is placed on the ballot, it is estimated to generate up to $700 million a year for the South Coast region, largely for incentives to promote the development and deployment of clean technology and facilitate fleet turnover from dirty, heavy-duty diesel trucks and other vehicles to cleaner alternatives. Staff recommends approval for the survey and a sponsoring concept position for the bill proposal if the survey provides positive feedback to allow flexibility within the state legislative process. And with that, I'm open to any questions, Madam Chair, from the committee members.
All right, now we'll open it up for questions to our committee. So the idea, I want to, the idea is, because we have a deadline on February 16 to get the survey results. If they're negative, we don't go further at that point, except perhaps to consider a gut and amend and go the other route. If this would come to the board, and then we would consider a gut and amend. If the survey results are positive, then we would go ahead with a spot bill, and then it can go to the board, and we can pull it back as needed, depending on board results. So, Dr. Burke, do I hear you speaking as well? Do you want to intervene here and say something?
Can you answer that question?
So there's a lot of people talking on the phone.
Go ahead. So Dr. Nelson, go ahead. Mr. Supervisor Nelson.
Yes, when we concluded Friday, our committee did not agree that we would rush to meet a deadline, and that if results came out a certain way, the decision would be different. That is not what we agreed to. What we agreed to is we would get a survey out, and that was it. Not that we would get it done in a quick manner. If it was positive, we would do a bunch of things. We agreed we would get a survey out, and that's it. All the rest of this has not been agreed to by the committee. Really, we didn't even discuss it in that fashion. So I'm just a little surprised with the sort of authoritarian speech that, hey, this is how we're planning on finishing it. According to who?
Well, we are reconsidering the issues we discussed on at the regular meeting in light of new information that we heard from FM3 and reconsideration of the strategy here on going forward. The item can always be pulled back, but because of the deadlines in the legislature, I wanted to proceed in this manner to get the matter forward. And we can pull it back after board consideration. We can pull it back depending on the survey results.
Did I hear, when I'm hearing what they're saying, and not what they're saying, and what Derek has stated, the chairperson is saying, that in order to get the reserve space so that when we take it to the board, if in fact we have it, first of all, we're not going to do anything if it's not favorable. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Secondly, if it's favorable, what you're asking for is a right. It's up to the authority to go in and ask for someone to reserve a spot and bill, while at such time that you take the results of the poll to the board and have the board then to decide whether or not they want to basically go forward with bill. And then at that time, if that would be the case, you would have reserved a spot somewhere in order to do that. If the board says no, then basically nothing happens. Is that what we're asking now, is to be able to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Supervisor Nelson, is that drastically different than what you are saying? Is that the board is going to be making the final decision as to whether or not favorable or unfavorable, as to whether or not we basically go forward? And that's what you were saying, that you wanted, you felt that this should be happening, that the board should really be the final arbiter. Is that correct?
Sort of. And again, the discussion we had Friday is the discussion we had. This was not part of our discussion. Our discussion was that this should be before the board, before any decisions are made. And when you get to, well, we got in a crunch, so basically the chair just decided to truncate the entire exercise, get on the legislative calendar. You know, that sure looks like to some people like it's a fait accompli. I would like to know, besides that, what it means if the quote-unquote survey is favorable. Who decides that? I've read the survey. Which question and what is favorable to find out? Here, for example, Clark, I'm sure you've read the survey.
Yes.
But you read some of the questions, there are some, I'll quote, there are some statements from people who oppose this proposal. You know, and give us your opinion on the people that oppose it. You've heard more information. Let me ask you again. This is a push poll. So, I mean, I have issues with this poll, and I certainly would like to know who gets to be the final arbiter of what positive results are. There are, to my knowledge, 20 plus questions. Which question has to be answered positively in order for the entire poll to be favorable? Everyone likes clean air. I think we can agree on that, and it says so in the poll.
Which one of the, and I agree with what you just stated, but as I read it, it was a setup in the poll to basically for the last two questions to say, would you be in favor of voting for a 4%? And if they said yes to that, no one is saying this. That's what I got the impression from it, that would be the favorable. The rest of it, would be able to say, we've told you the negative parts. We said more people don't like this, and they feel that, only certain people pay taxes, etc. Is to try to educate them before they basically have to answer the final questions. Maybe Derek or Wayne can address you, because that's a very valid point. What other question, which question is determinable as to whether or not it's favorable or unfavorable?
Well, Dr. Parker, you're absolutely right. The determinative question is whether or not people would support putting an initiative for a 1/4-cent sales tax. If that's negative, this really causes us to hit the pause button and to rethink. But the survey is actually two parts. One is to gauge public opinion on the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And the second is to ascertain the public's willingness to have that initiative process put on the ballot and to their vote.
Well, clearly, we're not in an emergency that the public perception about the AQMD. But when you get to the actual main question, I would suggest that it's sort of hidden in, now that you've poured more, let me ask you, in favor or oppose the AQMD's authority to raise funds at a local level? Why not just say to raise your taxes, because that's what we're talking about? Would you favor or oppose in question 20, the AQMD's authority to seek voter approval to raise your taxes on the sale of goods? Why hide it and make it sound like we're going to beat it out of this?
Supervisor, John Fairbanks and the firm that did this did the polling and survey for Measure M. They're the experts in terms of looking at these kind of initiatives. So I would defer to them on the actual...
I'm also an expert in parsing language, and I know what this means, that we all speak English. So I understand they're exceptional pollsters, but pollsters do whatever their customer asks them to do. That's how it works. So in question 20, I know what it says. I will quote, do you favor or oppose the state legislature giving the AQMD the authority to seek voter approval of a ballot measure to raise funds at the local level in order to grant funds and other incentives to encourage development and use of zero-emission vehicles? Now, I would suggest, and I'd be happy that if
You know what? I'm having trouble hearing Supervisor Nelson. It's getting a little bit garbled. I'm not sure why, but he's cutting in and out. So
Can I
maybe
suggest?
Derek can repeat it to me.
Yes. Can I suggest that everybody mute their phones while the other is talking, and maybe that'll cut off some of the noise?
Right, Wayne, item 20.
Okay.
I understand that we have a good pollster. I understand they're proficient. And I also understand they're going to poll what we ask them to poll. And I know what this is about. I've done this too many times. So if you ask if people favor raising, quote, local funds, but you don't explicitly tell them, we're trying to find out if people favor a sales tax measure. The idea that we would poll and not specifically say that seems a little problematic, don't you think?
Supervisor, question 23, let me just read it. Would you support or oppose raising the local sales tax by, and list the agency, 1/4%? So we say it explicitly, or it is said explicitly.
Right. Why? We are not looking to get permission to raise other local funds. Why doesn't question 20 just ask directly, do you support the AQMD getting authority to raise sales tax for local residents?
But it does. I was going to say,
No,
yes,
actually, question 20 does not.
it says raise it by 0.25%.
Not question 20. You gotta
Question
look for sure.
23
It does
does,
not
and you asked the question in many different ways to get a better gauge of what the public's understanding is.
say. Well, Wayne, if you want the public's understanding, I can assure you there's one quick way to do it. Include in the survey what they think the sales tax is, and you'll find out how much the public knows. Which will, I guarantee you, be very little about what the sales tax level is. But I don't understand why we would suggest to them we are looking to raise funds at a local level when we're only looking to do one thing. We're looking to raise sales tax.
Supervisor, so would you prefer to strike question 20 and just leave the local?
No, I prefer that question 20 just answer a direct question.
Well, question 23 asked that question.
I know what question 20 is set up to do, and it is a methodology of polling called push polling. If you walk through the script, what it does is lure people into a sense of comfort and then kind of drags in the other issues. Well, we got a lot of things on our mind. What do you have? What do you think about all these options? We're not asking them about options. It would be one thing if we were considering the 4 or 5 items, that would make sense to me, but we are not. Perhaps replace 20 with 23, but then it will take it out of order and it will affect what they're trying to do.
Look, this is Bill Burke, okay? I'm sure that Supervisor Nelson has done this probably 50 times more than I've done. But my assumption is that the pollster has done it 1,000 times more than Supervisor Nelson. So, as one who has very little experience in this, if I had to bet on this issue, I'm going with the pollster. So,
well, I'll go with the pollster too, Bill. I know what they're trying to do. They're good at it. I'm with them. They're good at it. But I know what they're trying to do.
Here's what I don't understand. Why do you think that they are in favor of giving us approval of this issue when they have no dog in this fight?
I think they're serving their customer.
Well, if you say you're going to serve your customer, and you send your customer up a blind alley, that customer is never coming back. If they tell me that people will support this, and I go out there and it's 99% opposed, you think I'm going back to that pollster? So if you're going to talk about serving your pollster, you got to give them the truth.
The results will be true. The results will be. This is the question. I mean, they'll stand on their own. It's a methodology, but my piece, and you've all been gracious. I have not watched it.
Well,
Look, I'm sorry, Clark, I didn't mean to.
I was just going to conclude is that what I see is that I don't see this being a real, I understand what staff is saying, is that if we get out, we take from one extreme to another, we realize that we don't go from those extremes. And it comes out, i.e. the word favorable, for the people feeling that way, to the extent itself of being able to, we're talking about this happening 2 years from now. So what is favorable today may not be favorable 2 years from now. All we're saying is that we want to be able to say whether or not we should even be spending time looking at this, and if we can, to prepare for what would happen 2 years, and the board is going to really be the one who's going to speak last.
So,
That's what
Dr. Parker, would a favorable result mean that question 23 is answered with number 1, strongly support?
I would think that, well, I don't know if it would be totally, that 51% of the people would say strongly support. I would say that what it would be if 51% of the somewhat support and strongly support would be 50%. That would be favorable to me. That, I just, you guys have done this a lot more than I am. I'm just a mathematician. And I look at it from the standpoint of
most qualified to do it.
I just look at it as if someone said that would be good enough for me to be able to put out the information to convince that somewhat support, up to strongly support, more so, from a campaign standpoint of view. I mean, this is not a situation that is going to be taken lightly. We would have to, first of all, convince people at the legislature that they should give us the right and stuff to even ask people to do this. Because, that's not a sure thing right from the beginning, from our standpoint of view. But I think and I will say this, and I recognize I may be preaching to the choir. It just seems to me that part of our responsibility is to find out ways that we can accomplish what we have basically stated to the people of this region that we're going to do in SCAQMD. How are we going to do that? We said that we were going to basically stop asking industry to come up and make all these changes and spend billions of dollars to do stuff or et cetera. We're going to find out ways in order to try to raise this money. This is just another step in that puzzle, a piece in that puzzle, not step, but a piece in the puzzle to try to find a way in order to do it. Not saying that that's what we're going to do, and not saying that we're going to use unilateral authority to do that. But if we don't start thinking of some kind of ways, we've just basically come up with an AQMP that is meaningless. So I don't look at it, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. People should have the right to basically say whether or not they want to be taxed for something or not. And if they choose not to do that on a large basis, then we, say, okay, and I'll say it lastly, and then I'll shut up, is that when you have 200 or 300 people come there and want to speak and talk about how things themselves should be and the air quality and all the other kinds of things, that's meaningful to us as a board. But it also says to us from the scientists and the people that we've chosen to work there, how are you going to get this done? And they've come up with these ways, and this board has adopted the ways that they're saying, and we said, and they said, the staff said, it's going to cost money to do that. Well, we go to the legislature. I agree with Supervisor Rutherford. We've got to find a way in order to get more money out of the cap and trade money that we should. Instead of getting 30%, we need to have 45 or 50%. We're trying on that. Certainly, we made a great effort last year and came out with a lot more than my 8 years of being on this board, almost 8 years, that we've ever seen. I think we get about $300 or $400 million last year. That's the first time we've ever got that kind of money out of the legislature. We need to keep on doing that. And each one of these, whether or not it's a 0.25% or an 8%, it's something that I think that it's a matter of asking people to do it. And I certainly don't agree that we should just keep on taxing people and taxing them. So I agree with you there, Sean. I think that's not a great way to do it, but it's also not a great way to have folks to say to us, what are you guys doing to try to help to do this? And so anyway, I said my piece.
So anyone else want to comment? Supervisor Rutherford.
As usual, I agree with just about everything Supervisor Nelson said. My concern when I read this poll is how much work has clearly been done by staff before the board and this committee got to have any input. So it's hard to read this as anything other than the train has already left the station and that the board's opinions are fairly secondary. So that is disappointing to me. I understand how it happens. I don't like it, but I agreed to do this brief half-an-hour meeting. I have to get off to another appointment, so if we could just take a vote, that would be fabulous.
Thank you, Supervisor, and I'll look for a motion on the matter before us.
Second.
Who made the motion? I didn't hear it from here. I heard Dr. Parker second.
I make,
Dr. Burke, did you move the item? We have a second from Dr. Parker, and we'll need a roll call on the matter.
Dr. Burke?
Okay.
yes,
Supervisor Nelson?
No.
Dr. Parker?
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford?
No.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Is there any other, there's no other business to come before us. It's a special meeting. And so we will adjourn until our next meeting on March 9th. Thank you all.
Thank you.